Well, welcome back. Time right now to bring in our panel. With us today, we have 2016 Vice Chair for the Indiana Trump campaign, Tony Samuel, Democratic strategist Laura Beck, and two former state lawmakers. For the Republicans, former State Rep Mike Murphy, and for the Democrats, former State Rep Terry Austin. Great to have you all with us here today. Mike, I'll start with you here. Mike Braun's cabinet getting together for a photo op on Friday. What do you make of the team that he's put together?
I think by and large it's very good. There's probably a couple that won't make it past 2 years. We'll see how they do. But the all-star, the valedictorian of the class, is Lisa Hirschman. She could be governor in 4 years or 8 years if she wants to be.
Katie Jenner sticking around in education. Jennifer Ruth Green named to the team this week. Terry, I want to talk to you about State House Democrats this week, also holding some press conferences, speaking out about what they called the, quote, economic consequences of the Braun agenda. What do you think some of those consequences might include?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns is how property tax reform is going to impact local units of government, services at the municipal level. And the problem is this: you may change the property tax structure, but there's not much fat left to cut at the local level, which means, and then if they give them a license to raise fees, you're going to nickel and dime people to death.
Meantime, Tony, Mike Braun says that in the Senate, in his final days, he is going to vote against the continuing resolution one last time in the U.S. Senate as that deadline nears to keep the government open. How different will things be in the Senate next year with a Republican majority in place?
Well, I think, first of all, Senator Braun, soon to be Governor Braun, sends a good, clear message that, you know, we reached a $35 trillion national deficit, and that's got to be dealt with. So I think he's sending a good message.
And he's voted
there
against those CRs every single time.
So he's consistent. Going forward, you know, now you've got the Trump era again restarting, and I think better than ever, because now he's already hit the ground running. They're already treating him like the president. You know, you're going to have the majority in the Senate and in the House, so things will be different. And you know, you're going to see a lot of government efficiencies with Elon Musk and Vivek. And then across the board, he's making great picks. So you're going to have I think the best U.S. government that we've ever had.
So, Lara, speaking of the U.S. Senate, what does your party look at here with Republicans taking control of the Senate, and as Jim Banks now heads to the U.S. Senate to serve alongside Todd Young, do you anticipate potentially a number of differences in the way that the two Republican senators from our state approach the job?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. I mean, I think Jim Banks is certainly very different than Todd Young, and I think Todd Young is somebody who definitely does appeal to a broader cross-section of Hoosiers, particularly even members of my party. I think the one thing, though, going back to something Tony just said about the government efficiency, and the work that they're going to be doing, is I really think this is an opportunity for Democrats to sit down with them and come to the table and say, hey, this is a great idea. Let's look at what we need to cut. Let's look at what we need to change. Let's be more impactful for the working person. Here are our ideas. Let's sit down together and work on this together. I think that would be a win for us, rather than constantly fighting against everything they come up with.
And we'll see in the next few years ahead here, Mike, if Todd Young is the kind of senator who bridges that gap or works across the aisle. We also know there are some Republicans already targeting for the primary in 4 years, and we just heard from Governor Holcomb there. He likely wouldn't run against Todd Young for the Senate, but if Todd Young didn't run again, do you think Governor Holcomb would? He seemed to talk a lot about the federal government in our interview.
Now, remember, he started off on a Senate campaign.
He did.
He ran against Young. I was on his finance committee.
Yeah.
And I think we had 1 or 2 meetings, and all of a sudden, when Todd Young jumped in, the Holcomb effort fell apart. And he had an opportunity to go on and be lieutenant governor. And so I don't think he's going to run again. I'm not sure the First Lady would be up for that, run for anything again. I think they've got a whole life ahead of them. They got plenty of money, and they can do whatever they want in this world.
Terry, what do you think of that, and how do people in your party view Governor Holcomb's legacy as he prepares to depart?
Well, I think, you know, you got to give the governor some credit. There are some good things that have happened under his watch. He had some significant challenges that he had to face, and he didn't always get a lot of support from his own party when he had to tackle them. But also, there are still some things that we have not addressed in this state. The child care crisis, improvements to education, making sure that we're not continuing to drop in higher ed enrollment. And workforce development is incredibly important, but we still keep trying to do a lot of experiments, and none of them seem to produce any real results.
Tony, how do Republicans view the governor's legacy? Maybe some mixed answers there from different people in your party, and is that potentially something that would hold him back from maybe being able to win a primary if he were to run again?
Well, it is mixed, you're right, because there's that populism movement that is critical of him on issues that he wasn't as conservative, and we go back to COVID, it was the main period for that. But he's a lot of accomplishments in the private sector, 280,000 private sector jobs held or gained while he was governor. Cut down the debt, our state's debt, a lot of broadband expansion and money with the Ready grants. So over 4 years, I think wokeism will be held in check, and hopefully it won't even be a thing. And a lot of that will be because of Trump and what happens at the national level and here. So folks might forget. I don't know that he would want to run for Senate. I don't think that's probably in the cards, like Mike said. But he's done so much with the private sector. I think that's where his future probably lies.
And of course, a lot of questions about whether Mike Braun will continue a lot of his economic development initiatives. Larry, you get the last word here. Governor Holcomb's legacy from your perspective.
Well, two things. One, I think he's going to have to get a job where he travels, because we know he likes to take a lot of trips. So I think he's going to have to have a travel budget worked in. But seriously, though, I think he did a really good job during COVID. He had a tremendously hard job. And one of the things he did with his team is they had those regular, weekly, almost daily briefings. It was very transparent. He had Dr. Box, Dr. Weaver, he'd have Katie Jenner there, folks who would come from all different agencies, and they really spoke directly to Hoosiers. And I think that was incredibly important during a very challenging time. So when I look back at that, I think that's really what helped define him. It probably put him in trouble with his own party, but I think it made him popular and gave him a real leg up with his popularity ratings, because he had a steady hand during a really critical time.
He won re-election by a wide margin that year, for sure. All right, that's it for the panel for now. They'll be back in just a few minutes with this week's winners and losers. But coming up next, former Attorney General Curtis Hill talks about the trial, the civil trial he nearly faced. It was dismissed the night before. We'll get his reaction straight ahead after this.